So it comes with 6 meters of wire from the rear camera, but when I did a test run laying it down through the car, I couldn't get it to run on this size of vehicle the way that one of the instructional videos had said, which was to take it down, to take it across there, down, I think it's called the A-pillar, down along the floor, under the door trim, through the door, up and round, and then down through the hatch or tailgate. And so what I've done, and I'll go back, you'll see a little loop of wire at the top there, behind the headlining there, along the top there behind the headlining, through here, through the headlining. I took the handle off here so I had more to play with the headlining, so I could tuck the wire well in. This centre pillar here, that I prized that off a bit, and nothing broke, through the headlining. To take the headlining down, you'll see in the video, later video, I pulled the door seal rubbers off, and then at this point fed it through along there, just tucked it in. You can just tuck it in on this one, and then for the power wire which comes up, that's just tucked up there, prized that off, it all came off. The excess wire is hidden in there and down there into the fuse box. So that's wiring it in my Dacia Duster. I'll just show the fuse box for those interested in the Duster specific, although there is another video about this. So the hardwire, you have to pull the door seal off, comes down, feed it through here. Again, I used that plastic snake to just get it down there until it appeared in the fuse box. The wire appeared in the fuse box, and I'll show you how I did that. So just as described by others, I used the supplied bits and pieces to piggyback it onto the windscreen wiper fuse, which means that the power to it goes off when the engine is off. It's a nice hardwire kit which has a box that prevents the camera from draining the battery below 11.7 volts if it's left on at any time. I couldn't find an earthing screw anywhere, and so what I've had to do is drill a hole through this piece of metal. This is on a Dacia Duster, and put a self-tapping screw in to take that. So that's a 3.2mm drill, and well, you'd have to just get the right size drill to suit your screw. So a little bit of extra thing to do there, having to drill a hole into that. Metal was conveniently there in the fuse box, thankfully, so I didn't have to extend the wire, the earthing strap wire anywhere. But there we go, it works fully. So that's it inside the fuse box on the left hand side of a Dacia Duster. Right, so the rest of it will show you some of my other struggles to get the wire fed through the trim. I've said something that I didn't feel the 6 meter length of cable on the rear camera would fit under the door sills, and I also had difficulty trying to get even that plastic tubing around here, so that I wasn't able, maybe if I'd persevered I would have been able to. With it going in the way it's running, which is along the top of the doors, there is certainly enough wire to route it across to here, through that boot, up into the metal, in the cavity in the hatch, and round to where it needs to go. But I've cheated, and I've just taped it along until a point where I could get it to go into the top of the headlining there. So that's my bit of cheat. And the excess wire is hanging down in that part, which is where you would get to the reversing light, but the red wire that's coming from the camera to the reversing light isn't long enough to actually reach on its own, so it needs extending, and that would have to be done some other time. Now, just one other minor thing about this particular camera is that the camera has about a foot, 20 centimeters of wire on it, and then there's a tiny 4-pin plug And when you separate the plug, it means you can feed the other wire through without the trouble of the camera on. And the plug on the camera side goes through a 6mm hole, which is very useful, and the plug on the AV lead side to the front will go through a slightly larger, maybe say 7mm hole. And the plug is nice and smooth, it's not an awkward plug, and therefore when attached to something feeds through nicely. So that's a really good feature. You split the wire with a cylindrical tiny 4-pin plug and socket arrangement, so that you can do the feeding through. You're not trying to feed one long wire and decide. What I did in the end was fed the first bit, well, I fed it from the front around the sides to the back and lost the excess in here and then brought it back up there. So that's it. Any questions, just ask, and ask me fairly quickly while I can still remember what I've done about the specifics. And one of the clippy plastic bits, no, two of the clippy plastic bits I broke off on this part when removing this part. There's 2 Torx screws in there. There's a couple of Torx screws somewhere else, I can't remember. See, I can't remember already. And I lost another plastic clippy bit, possibly from that piece of trim there, but it's not affecting its functionality at the moment. And at some stage, oh, there's where the Torx, I've missed that Torx screw from there. So I've taken a screw out from there, I've got to replace. I can replace those trim plugs, fixing things as and when, once I've bought some spares.